this week you have been learning about how to actually make learning very meaningful, and there's many different ways that you can actually make learning, especially instruction in writing and math for students with disabilities, very meaningful. Three primary ways. Number one, the first main way is ensuring that you're using curriculum-based measurement and instruction, something known as CBM or CBI that we call. The second one is using differentiated teaching or instruction. And then the third one is planning for student outcomes and then measuring those outcomes and then reteaching the concepts. So we'll start off with the first one, curriculum-based measurement and instruction. So this is actually something that many teachers are starting to use now, whether it's daily or weekly, and they might also, if they have an instructional assistant that can assist them as well. And this is where you actually document where the child is at, as far as with a specific concept or a specific skill, and then you document that, or you can either graph it, or you can write it down as like a list form as well, and then you look to see if after you reteach that concept, if they don't understand it, if they actually grew and by how much did they grow. So this was something I also used. I typically did this on Fridays in the morning time when I had my elementary students and also middle school students when I had a pull-out skills class. And I used to, at that time, I would break up the class into centers, into groups, and I had one center where we were actually assessing to see where the students were in some of the skills that they learned that actual week. And then depending on where they were, we graphed it, and so we were able to see, okay, did they grow or did they not grow from week to week. So that's curriculum-based measurement, or curriculum-based instruction is also ensuring that we're using higher level thinking skills and teaching our students on how to do that. Bloom's taxonomy, it's a big example of that, and it shows the types of questions that we need to ask our students and how they can grow from that as well. I do also want to talk a little bit about project-based learning, because this week also included some information about project-based learning. This is very hands-on type of learning, almost kind of like action learning, and it could be in the form of group work, it can be individual projects, those kinds of things. So those are very important as well. Keep in mind, with curriculum-based measurement or curriculum-based instruction, you're constantly having to do assessment. So you're doing formative assessments, you're trying to see where they kind of are at that given moment, and then you're also doing summative assessments to see if they learn the entire content as well. So you're doing those types of things throughout while you're doing curriculum-based measurement. So I want to keep that in mind, that you're still doing formative assessments and you're still doing summative assessments. Also with curriculum-based instruction, you're still teaching in a variety of different ways. So just because you are assessing these students and documenting to see whether they have the skill or not, you should teach in a variety of ways to keep the students engaged, checking for understanding, making sure that when you're teaching, you might be giving stories or telling stories, making it in a narrative form to keep them engaged, maybe doing think, pair, share activities, group activities, those kinds of things. All of those types of things ensure that there's engagement in the classroom. Using technology is another big one, which leads me to technology. So there's actually several programs that are out there that help with curriculum-based measurement and help document the skill levels. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look actually at some of these programs that are out there. They're also known as personalized learning programs. So Read 180 has an actual computer software component to it that students use 20 minutes every day, and as the teacher you can actually pull reports from that information, as far as their comprehension, their vocabulary word knowledge, all of those types of things as well. There's also other programs that exist as well, and some of those programs, for example, one of them actually is called NoRedInk. So we're going to go to this one really quick here. This is one of my favorite ones. I used to use this one when I used to teach middle school. And NoRedInk is actually free, so you don't actually have to sign up, although if you do sign up with your district or your school, you do have more access to a variety of other tools that are actually here. But NoRedInk is really cool because it basically gives students an assessment in the beginning and assesses their writing capability, assesses their ability to use nouns, verbs, their knowledge of all of those types of things, figures of speech, and then it places them at a certain level. And then from there, they actually do lessons and they actually do quizzes, and then you, as an instructor, have that information, and then you can pull those reports and provide those work samples or those assessments, at IEP meetings. So it's actually really cool. I really encourage you to take a look at this program. The grammar has, diagnostic, unit diagnostic, practice, quizzes, and it's all at their individual level. So it personalizes and it adapts to their learning of where they're at that given moment. So it's a really great tool. There are other programs that are out there, so I do encourage you to check those out. Even just a simple Google search, you'll be able to find other personalized learning programs. The key point, though, is making sure that these programs are backed by research and that there has been either a qualitative study or a quantitative study that supports this type of personalized learning program. I do want to mention many of the textbooks that sometimes you use in your teaching in your classes, like Pearson. They have a personalized learning program there, depending on your school district and the school. If there's enough licenses, you can get on that, and then you could have your students receive that support maybe at home, or you can assign them certain lessons that they do as well. We also have Voyagers as well. That's another big one. And then Field Education is another major one that's out there in addition to Read 180 and NoRedInk and Pearson. So take a look at those programs. Those are really important, and it really helps make learning meaningful. And that's the whole key in this week is, how is it that we can actually make learning meaningful? So those are some ways that we can. I do want to point out, if I go here, that differentiated in teaching, so making sure that once we figure out if a student is not understanding something, that we accommodate, to them. So we either reteach the lesson, we might teach in a different way, or we might provide a certain accommodation, or we might use technology to hopefully get them to understand the material. That's known as differentiated teaching. And so you have to do those kinds of things in order to make it more meaningful. Finally, you want to also plan for student outcomes, and so depending on if the students understand the material or not, you can proceed to something that's more rigorous, or something that adds on to more of that concept. So you want to always take a look at that, evaluating all of the outcomes, the assessments, and then making sure that your assessments are driving your instruction. That's the key.